GWL, Ghana Water Limited, announces Wager Dam spillage to avoid collapse. And Kojo, Boating, we are back to this.
We are back to this.
We'll talk about it shortly. Fiman Rural Bank votes 35 million to support Edum fire victims. Let me get to we'll get to other stories. Let me get to the back page of the Daily Graphic. Back page says School Management Committee to tackle challenges at Akotolante cluster of schools. Teshi, New England. Teshi, New England.
Yes.
You know New England in Teshi.
I think I was going to look for it.
New England gets new 11 kV feeder to enhance power supply. These are stories in the Daily Graphic. But the graphic business for this morning, Kojol, it's important we tell you also stories making headlines. The graphic business says Damine mine shuts down. Fate of 1,700 workers hangs in balance.
Wow.
And yesterday I saw a story about Fifi Boafo, who used to be at Cocoa Board, questioning the shutdown of the Damine mines, and I think we just, we need answers to this. We just don't have to sit back and say, okay, that's the end of it. I'd like to know why, a decision has been taken not to renew their licenses. And if the decision is taken not to renew their mining license, what happens to the workers, for instance?
Some of the answers lie in Goldfield's own annual reports and their planned mine development strategies. We look at what plans they have for their various assets across the country and across the world. Then we get a sense of where they wanted to take the diamond mines. Some of the answers also lies with the regulator, what conversations they've had with Goldfields, what Goldfields submitted for their renewal and all those things.
Yeah.
And our strategy nationally on managing our mineral resources going forward. Over the past few weeks, there have been a lot of talk about Ghana taking full control of our mineral resources. Former Chief Justice Sophia Kufu says we should review. A lot of people have suggested that we should own our mines and own the value that we get from the soil. So it's Goldfields. This conversation about Goldfields is really setting the stage for us to have the conversation going forward. Do we still do business as usual, or we learn from other countries that own their resources? For example, Norway owns majority stake in their oil resources. If you go to Saudi Arabia, they own their oil resources. They've set up a business that is running. If you go to Malaysia, in fact, there was a point where we went to Malaysia with GMPC officials to learn how they managed to set up their oil industry, how the state plays both in the upstream, downstream sector, how they have oil rigs all over the world. So these are conversations we must have. We own the resources. Should we continuously manage it the way it is, or we should find a way to get the best returns from them? And it goes to other areas as well, Kojo, if you allow me, like our quarries, right? We've got hundreds of quarries around the country who are blasting rocks and selling within the country. We have a lot of companies winning sand in the country who are taking a lot of value, but how much of that comes to us? And what can we do to get the best value out of these natural resources that are owned by the state?
Well, what I've always said, I am always for Ghanaian ownership of the Ghanaian economy. Whenever we've had conversations about the growth in the Ghanaian economy, what I've always asked is what percentage is owned by Ghanaians?
Exactly.
So, yes, we need to have that conversation, but we must also do that right. And that's something we need to talk about. But also on the front page.
Well, before you move on, let's also have a say. For decades as a country, we have had this psychology that whatever deals we've struck around our mineral resources are set in stone and cannot be changed. And we don't take advantage of our own regulatory regimes to press our natural advantage as a nation. So we lose a lot. We first of all sign poor deals, and then we continue to lose in perpetuity. It doesn't make sense. I noticed the signaling by the finance minister when he read the budget, where his suggestion proposal of doubling the tax on the tax paid by the mining companies
the levy.
met some debate. But I thought that was the right move, okay? Because like both of you, I completely want to see far more ownership, Ghanaian ownership of our economies and our sectors than we have currently. And this is how to do it, through our regulation.
I looked at the Petronas annual report, and they were paying about $49 billion back to the government almost every year. So the state owns the business. The business is doing well. It's paying a lot of value back into the economy to run.
I would just make a single point. In other jurisdictions, when the state owns a business, the state looks for the best minds to run the business.
Exactly.
Unfortunately, in Ghana, when the state owns the business, the state looks for those who have helped their party to run the business.
Yep.
And he sees it as a reward. And that would milk the entity, leading it into huge debts, and the cycle continues. Scrap taxes on exploration. That's the acting chief executive officer of the Ghana Chamber of Mines, Ahmed Natogma, who's renewed calls for the scrapping of VAT component on the tax build-up on the exploration for prospective mining companies. U.S. 10% tariff is opportunity for intra-Africa trade. That's according to Professor Bawku. Government TP tackle youth unemployment with 5,000 digital jobs. Yeah.
My joint line is very heavy with Bawku stories. The standoff with police is a dangerous new trend. Minority on security forces attacks in Bawku. Bawku deserves peace. Minority is calling for depoliticization as conflict escalates. And there are some other stories on the front page of my joint line. PRC defense tariff hikes despite ongoing power and water disruptions. And the big story in global education: Trump freezes $2 billion in Harvard funding after university rejects demands. That story is everywhere.
These are all stories from the online review.
Yes.
So Trump is now freezing Harvard.
Yes.
Why did they deny him admission?
No, he made some requests for Harvard to review some things, their inclusion, their disciplinary issues, and a few other things. And Harvard said no, they are a private institution that has its own governance, that has its own strategies. They are not going to change the way they've run the school for years.
They know he freeze funding.
So it's a possible freeze of $2 billion over the next 5 years. And Harvard says they're also putting in strategies to deal with it.
Well, there's a story here on myjournline.com. Where are these weapons coming from? Minority demands action as sophisticated arms flood Bawku. Bawku deserves peace. Minority calls for depoliticization as conflict escalates. Kojo Youngson and Kojo Boateng, I'm going to talk about Bawku probably for the last time. I'll talk about it again. Look, our politicians are taking advantage of the conflict. That is not in doubt. But this is it. I, Winston Amwa, I will never kill anybody because of a politician. Because anybody who asks you to engage in violence doesn't like you. He has no regard for you. And when I went to Bawku in 2020 we did ballot box from Bawku. When I went to the Bawku Nabas Palace, what he told me was that he believed so much in peace and expected the area to be peaceful. So when I was having ballot box and one guy got up and accused us because apparently they had arranged that 2 MPP, 2 NDC. I didn't even know. And here we are pointing at people to ask questions. And this guy he disrupted the program. What I said to him was that I know all the politicians who are with us, but I would not kill myself because of them. You may be fighting for them, but they don't even know you. So, yes, the politicians will take advantage, but citizens should be reasonable to know that you cannot continue to kill yourselves because of a politician's parochial interest. That's all I'd say.
Okay, so there's another story about Kwowu coming up and the Kwowu Business Forum. Over 600 businesses going to meet in Kwowu to strategize as to how to invest. Last month the Kwowu chief said they were going to give lands to people to come and farm. If we had this everywhere across the country, your Gomoa area, my Nkranza area, maybe we'll attract some.
Be interesting, yeah. I saw that the chief of staff had mentioned that there are some 5 banks participating, and he expects each of these banks. No. There are several banks participating. He expects each of these banks to adopt 5 businesses and help them. And I thought that was a very
So go
proactive.
more business for when.
Charlie, let's plan it. That's right.
Shortly.
Coming soon to an Umpoho near you. All right.